Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope y'all are doing well on this Thursday. I am excited to be out at the SAB, the Student Athlete Building in Provo, Utah this afternoon to watch BYU football practice. I know it's a snapshot. I know they'll be in helmets. There's not going to be a ton to take away, but it's just good to be back out there watching football. I am a junkie for football, as many of you probably are well aware if you're a longtime everydayer on this podcast, but it'll be good to be back out there. We'll obviously have a full report for you guys tomorrow. If you want the inside scoop on everything I'm seeing and hearing at BYU, well, join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group because they're going to be getting the updates literally moments after that practice wraps up. I'll be texting out my thoughts, and you'll get them instantaneously. Link is in the show notes below. The best part is 14-day free trial. You can get almost half of spring camp for free before just paying $5 a month to get that inside scoop. So join us today on the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. All right. Players to watch in spring camp for BYU. It's always an interesting thing when it comes to spring camp because, as I mentioned earlier on in today's show, I lovingly call there's a player or two, it's usually one, maybe two guys, who end up being what I like to call the spring ball MVP, who you never hear from again. What do I mean by that? Well, they seem to be a walk-on, a down-the-depth chart guy that is a gritty performer, and they go out and have a really impactful spring. And I admit our 20-minute windows of watching practice are a snapshot of what usually is an hour and a half to 2 hours of work for the BYU football program. But those spring ball MVPs, for whatever reason, they seem to emerge. They become a storyline in spring camp. But by the time we get to training camp in August, they're either off the roster or literally they're buried on the depth chart and you never hear from them. I don't mean that to be a negative. That's what will happen this spring. Who do I think it'll be? I couldn't even begin to guess because there have been so many of them over the years. I don't remember half the names, but inevitably, there will be one or two guys. Just be aware. You're going to have to learn the name of a guy, and then you're going to feel like 3 months down the line, hey, whatever happened to so-and-so? It's going to happen. Now, actual players who I think you'll want to watch and monitor during spring camp, guys that I will be watching very closely. Let's start off with two guys who are transfer portal additions, and obviously they're going to be easy ones to keep an eye on because they're expected to have a major impact. Number one, Keanu Tanuvasa. How does he look at defensive tackle? He is part of a revamped BYU defensive line, but he has the talent to upgrade that defensive tackle spot for BYU and really make it into a formidable force. Excuse me. What does he look like out there on the field for the first time in BYU blue? I'll be keeping an eye on that. On the opposite side of the football, a former Utah teammate of his is Carsen Ryan. Obviously, BYU has a dearth of returning production at tight end. Well, Carsen Ryan's been playing college football for quite a while now. He has one season to get it right as a BYU Cougar. Can he really emerge this spring and put his stamp on saying, this is my position? There are other guys on the roster. Noah Moiaki. I look at Anthony Olson, a guy like Ethan Erickson, even some incoming freshmen like Tucker Kelleher. They're all going to have opportunities to obviously make their own imprint, but I think it's Carsen Ryan's story to write when it comes to that tight end group. And we'll see what happens there. It's going to be interesting to see if he can really emerge or if it's going to be by committee in terms of the tight end position once again. Another name to keep an eye on, Hunter Clegg. Now, Hunter is a return missionary, so I'm not going to put a lot of undue pressure on him, but this was a kid who was an absolute star at the high school level and was absolutely a sensation and really has a lot to live up to now as he comes in as a defensive end for BYU. How much will he actually show in spring? Will he even see the field in spring? That's one thing to monitor because BYU is very careful with return missionaries and making sure that they don't push them too early. There are certain guys who come back from missions and they seem to be in peak physical condition and can step right in. Other guys, it takes some time to get back into the swing of things. So keep an eye on Hunter Clegg, but I'm also not going to be expecting too much from him in terms of what he really can produce. I'm also looking forward to seeing what some of these new freshmen coming in can do. Think of guys like Ethan Thomason, former 4-star offensive lineman, had a couple of injuries while he was out in the mission field. What does he look like as he comes in for his first spring camp? LaMason Waller, we've talked with him on this podcast a couple of times before he enrolled at BYU. This is his first chance to make an impression on the field for the Cougars. Cale Breslin, who we had on the show as well back in February, actually back in December, ahead of the national early signing window. Those are two guys who are true freshmen who are they literally graduated in December from high school. What can they show in their first spring camp? Are they up to the task of really emerging. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do out there on the field because I think that they have an opportunity to make an impression and hopefully find themselves on the depth chart going into the summer. I don't expect them to be at the top of the depth chart because, quite frankly, if they are, BYU's got bigger problems brewing. That means a bunch of injuries occurred, or simply guys have not lived up to expectations at both the wide receiver and running back positions in the case of Waller and Breslin. But they've got established veterans in front of them. But can they come in and show something, whether it's as a third stringer, getting an opportunity to maybe run with the ones once in a while? Can they just show some like, I guess, tidbits of being, hey, we're a guy they're going to want to monitor down the line here. That's the biggest thing. Other players to watch. I'll be monitoring the backup quarterback battle. Now, why would I be monitoring that so closely? Well, I think it's easy to say that they are the heir apparent to Jake Retzlaff as Jake enters what is expected to be his final year of eligibility as a BYU Cougar. But can McKay Hillstead separate himself from Trayson Bourget or vice versa? Aaron Roderick said it to Jay Drew that they have 3 quarterbacks in spring ball. It's just part of the deal with regards to this house settlement. It's going to cut down the rosters. BYU will carry 4 quarterbacks going forward. Maybe in a rare case, they'll carry a 5th. But in spring, it's Jake Retzlaff, it's McKay Hillstead, and Trayson Bourget. You're going to have an interesting dichotomy there with just 3 guys taking all of the reps at quarterback. Obviously, it gives them an extra opportunity because was it 8? Might have been 9 guys a year ago in spring camp, and there simply just wasn't room or reps to get guys looks at the quarterback spot. With just 3 guys in the room right now, that is going to obviously add extra reps to the plate of all 3 of these players. And I do wonder if the pecking order coming out of spring is established that it's Jake Retzlaff, and then who's number 2, Hillstead or Bourget? And that storyline, it'll be one worth watching because, as I mentioned, if they establish themselves as the number 2 guy, well, they're the odds-on favorite going into 2026 as the incumbent, being the backup quarterback, to take over as starting quarterback to replace Jake Retzlaff. So it's an important spring camp for those 2 players, speaking of Bourget and Hillstead, to show what they're capable of. Let Aaron Roderick have a thought in his mind, hey, that's a guy to file away for the future in terms of a guy that can come in and be what we want at the quarterback spot after Jake leaves? Or are they going to show not enough that may have Aaron Roderick thinking, maybe the transfer portal this upcoming season is something we're going to monitor a little closer when it comes to the quarterback spot. Defensively, also, one other name to keep an eye on. I'm looking forward to seeing what BYU has in the secondary. Most notably is Maury Bamba. Is he going to be everything that we're expecting him to be now that he's back officially for his extra year? It is still pending regarding Darius Lassiter. There's no word on if and when a judgment will come from the NCAA on his eligibility status, but Maury Bamba is back for another year. Can he take what he did at the back half of last season, and especially in that bowl game against Colorado, and translate it into consistent production? Him and Evan Johnson appear to be the odds-on favorites, at least early on, to be the starting corners for BYU. But do not be surprised if a guy like Trey Alexander, Jonathan Cabella, Marcus McKenzie, they're all going to be chomping at the bit saying, hey, they may be vets, but I'm going to supplant them and take over as the starting corner. I think the safety spots, you've got 2 very capable veterans in a guy like Raider DeMooney alongside Tanner Wall. But similar to what I just talked about with the corners, keep an eye on the young bucks, Falatau Satuala and Tommy Process. They're obviously going to want to push those 2 out of those jobs and take them over for their own. The linebacking core, very well established. Harrison Taggart, Isaiah Glasker, and Jack Kelly, wrap them in bubble wrap. Keep them healthy until September and then turn them loose. They have nothing more in my mind to prove than they've already proven. So I gave you just a laundry list of different guys that I'll be monitoring, but I guess the 5 in particular, I guess if you want me to narrow it down to 5, Keanu Tanuvasa, Carsen Ryan, number 3, I'm going to make it 6. Trayson Bourget, McKay Hillstead, and that's in no order there. I think those 2 are worth monitoring. Then on the defensive side of the football, it's Maury Bamba, and then number 6, Hunter Clegg. Those will be the 6 in particular I'll be looking at. But as I said, there will be a name or 2 that will emerge, and they will be a storyline all spring camp long. And then for whatever reason, they will disappear into the annals of BYU football history and be quickly forgotten by everybody who talked about them for this month-long period.